Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Building Greatness the Warrior Way, a Westcliff University athletics podcast. I am your host, Chase Dodge. I am the Sports Information Director here at Westcliff University, and I'm here to take you through the week that was and the week that will be in Westcliff athletics. Let's not waste a moment and let's get into it.
Hey, Westcliff Warriors, thank you for tuning in for another segment of Building Greatness the Warrior Way, a Westcliff University athletics podcast. I have a very special guest today. We have our new men's lacrosse head coach, Mike Song. Mike, thank you for joining the podcast with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Chase, thank you very much.
And first, I just want to how are you enjoying your time at Westcliff? Because I know I think you're still in that 30-day. I think you're still less than a month. How are you enjoying your time with the administration, with other head coaches?
Yeah, I'm loving it. It's only been I'm actually starting my fourth week. It'll be as of tomorrow, but I'm just really excited to be part of this program. I'm excited to be working at the collegiate level. I'm excited to be on the offering side of scholarships. Historically, I've always been on the other side trying to get my kids into college and my players some opportunities. So now it's really nice to be on this side. It's also really exciting to be to be working on this full time. I've always worked on coaching above and beyond what normal time allows. As being in the education field and as a coach, we all know the struggle of always just giving more, and not having enough time to do everything for the kids. So it's really great to be a full-time coach and focus on working with the kids, getting them into school, and also letting them know, hey, I'm here to be their coach, meaning I'm going to be their go-to guy here on campus. I'm going to be the adult that looks out for them. I'm going to be their mentor. I'm going to help them guide their path through college. So that's exciting. And then on top of that, the first few weeks have been great. Working with everyone. Unfortunately, I'm still remote, but once I get over to California in a couple of weeks, I'll be settled in. So.
And we're looking forward to having you in person. We'll talk about what you have coming up this week later in the podcast. But first, I just want a little bit more information about you. Where are you from? Where's your hometown? And also, where'd you play for lacrosse?
Yeah,
let's start there.
So so I'm originally from Virginia. So I grew up playing lacrosse since I was in the third grade. I went to a private school in Richmond, Virginia, called St. Christopher School, and then went on to a boarding school in Connecticut, Pomfret School. And then I went to college at Lehigh University, where I ended up deciding to play club for their team there. We ended up going to the NCAA quarterfinals and semifinals. 2 different years I was there. I was also named the NCAA All-Star team. And then after college, went on to play for the Korean national team in the World Games. So in 2002, we competed in the World Games. It was the first Korean national team that competed in the World Games, and we came in 11th place, was ranked one of the top midfielders in the world, and just had a wonderful experience. That was one of the first chances I got to play with other Koreans, other people from outside of my hometown. And quite frankly, I went to a school that was predominantly white American. I was one of two minorities in the entire school, actually. So it was just a very great experience. And that's what led me to where I am today as a coach. And my philosophy is just increasing the growth of the sport, especially in a diverse manner. It was very, very, very valuable for me to be able to play this wonderful sport with other minorities, other Koreans, and show that this sport can grow in various markets. So it's always been important to me to show this sport to as many new players as possible, and build that family.
And we're happy to have you. You're definitely in the great location for kind of pushing that diversity in the sport, being in California, especially in Southern California in Irvine. My next question would for you is, how'd you hear about Westcliff University? Because we're still starting the lacrosse program. We haven't had a official season yet. So how'd you, we tried and it didn't get off its feet. So how'd you hear about us in this position?
Yeah. So I was so just before I took this position, I was the head coach at Westside. I was about to say Westside University, Westside High School in Houston, Texas, where I was leading that program. And we had a couple players that the previous coach had recruited. And that's when I first learned about Westcliff as an NAIA school, and the opportunities here at Westcliff. It attracted me. When I first was speaking with the previous coach and guiding my players in their decision making, it just sounded like an attractive opportunity, and it was just something where I always had in the back of my mind, hey, here's an option where if kids want to go to California, and they're trying to build a program, so there are opportunities there, and financing there. So I learned about it, I think, just before COVID. I'm trying to remember probably, but had a couple of recruits, and I learned about Westcliff, and then of course, we had these unfortunate circumstances with COVID, et cetera. And so, but I kept it in mind. And then when I was thinking about my next position, I wanted to go to the college level, and Westcliff came to mind, and I saw that there was an opening. So we got in touch with Michael Hardaway, and we started having conversations about what I felt like was my philosophy and my vision for the program.
And we're happy to have you. Lacrosse is definitely something I know for our sports information team. We're very excited to look forward to having, because I'm going to be honest, like, I'm not very familiar with the sport of lacrosse. I mean, I've known about it, didn't really a deep dive, so I don't know the nuances or the lexicon of the sport. But it's so one cool thing about being at Westcliff is that we're always like pioneering sports. For example, we have our own futsal program, so indoor soccer. And for those listening on the podcast, we'll have a guest with Coach Ivan talk more about futsal. But so we're like one of the first schools in the U.S. to sponsor futsal, along with surf. I mean, because we're on the West Coast, we're in California. Surf is not a sponsor sport. It's considered a club team, especially at the for Division I and Division II schools. So we kind of pride ourselves in just highlighting all sports. It doesn't matter what it is. If athletes want to come here to play that sport, we'll find. I know Coach Sean will always say, like, we'll find a way to get it going. And I know lacrosse is something that we're very excited to have. And we're gonna go. I know you have a recruitment, a recruitment visit coming up on Friday. How exciting is that? What are people, and we're gonna film it. We're gonna do the whole nine to promote it. What are your hopes from this visit coming up on Friday about incoming lacrosse players?
Yeah. Well, before I mention that, I just want to quickly note what you were talking about. I just think it's so exciting and progressive, or so exciting to be part of an athletic department that is progressive. I mean, the fact that we have a leading esports team,
Yes.
I mean, that just shows, it just illustrates, the progressiveness of the athletic department and where it's going to go. And what I envision, or what I see, is when you have these sports lined up that maybe aren't quite sanctioned, like surf, esports, etc., we're going to be the first ones ready, and we're going to be leaders once they do come up. So I bring up the esports as an example because I know that's the future. That's one of the areas of growth in sports in general. So
absolutely, and shout out to our head coach Neil.
Yeah.
Esports, I mean, for their first full season of competition, made it for they play in different games, and for Call of Duty they made it all the way to quote on, like, it's called the LAN event, so it's like the final location of the top 8 teams in the nation. I spoke with Neil, out of over 200
That's amazing.
200 schools playing, and they finished, I believe, 5th. So the only games they lost to were the eventual champion and then the number 3 school.
Awesome.
So in their first year, so just like, and then surf as well finished 5th nationally couple weeks ago in June. All of our quote unquote like sports that and I'll just be frank with you too. I'm a very big fan of sports that don't necessarily get the traditional spotlight. So like basketball, soccer, football. I'm always a huge fan of those sports that kind of are just like, hey, we're competing too. Like, so like, and also here at Westcliff, our most successful sports are the ones that you most typically don't think of. So our tennis team, our women's beach volleyball team won their conference tournament title, made it all the way to the semifinals in the NAI Invitational National Tournament, finishing 3rd overall. So that's what I mean. Just to reiterate your point about how progressive Westcliff is like our most successful sports are the ones that you don't normally associate. So like basketball, soccer, or like football. I mean, we don't offer football, but football's like the big one, at least for collegiate athletics, especially at D1 level. And so that's why we're excited to have lacrosse. And those listening in, sorry, for those listening, lacrosse is also it's an invitational sport within the NAI, which is very exciting, because also is very exciting because I don't, Coach, do you know any schools out west that sponsor lacrosse at the NAI level? I know there's a lot of D1 and D2, but I believe we might be the only ones out west.
We are the only NAIA school in California, and we're one of 2 schools in California that offer scholarships.
Who might I ask is the other institution?
Okay, so
sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Coach, but I'm curious. I want to know.
I believe I'm getting my names mixed up. There's one, so it's either San Marcos or you know what? I don't want to say the wrong thing.
All right, and it's perfectly fine, but it's safe to say it's not another NAIA school.
There's definitely not another NAIA school.
Okay.
But oh man, you put me on.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I was curious because and just like me, I want to make sure I have all my whenever I say any information, I want to make sure I'm correct on what I state. So we'll just leave it at that. But We are the only NEI school out west to offer men's lacrosse along with women's lacrosse, but you're the head coach for men's lacrosse. So we'll just go back to what is your hope and goal for the recruitment visit you got on Friday?
Yeah, so we're really excited for Friday. This is going to be our first recruiting event. So I'm bringing a club team, a select club team called Culture Lacrosse, which I started here in Houston as a high school club team to help kids get into college. And as I took this position at Westcliff, it was a perfect match to be able to do those simultaneously. So that team, it's a mixture of players from all over the country, primarily Texas and California. We're bringing them as well as other, anyone who wants to look into Westcliff, others in California who just are interested, are registering for our prospect camp on Friday. We're all going to be there on Friday. We're going to have a nice tour of the campus. And this is a good opportunity for any high school student to get the experience of visiting a campus, seeing what a campus visit looks like, speaking to admissions and financial aid personnel. Again, for the players and parents to get an idea of what a college visit is like. Especially if you're going to go on a number of college visits, this is a good start, especially if you're near California. So we got a good group of over 20 players. It looks like we have about 25 right now who are going to be at the prospect camp on Friday. We're still getting people registering and registrations are still coming in. So Friday we'll do a tour. We'll speak to admissions and financial aid. We will do a tour of the athletic facilities, and then we'll do a full-on practice. We're going to do a full practice with our athletic staff there. We're going to have our sports information people there to, like you said, to film and get good footage of the event. We've got some players coming. And we're really excited about it. The most important thing to any event like this is having high level, high energy lacrosse being played at the practice. So this being a little bit different from traditional programs where they have their full team already there and you just add people to the practice. Well, it's going to be a lot more newer players or prospects there really getting after it. Like I said, we have a lot of great players that I know who are, I'm just going to say they're straight up ballers. All right, they're going to
and there's nothing wrong with saying that that the incoming players you're interested in can freaking play. You know that they can go hard.
Yeah, and the purpose is to set a precedence, right?
Yeah.
I want to set a very competitive precedence for this program. We're here to win championships, right? We're not here just to put together a team and see what happens.
Right.
We're here to drive the ball, right? And that's part of my recruiting pitch is, again, you're not here just to try to go somewhere and play. We're here to win, right? And that's who we're selecting. And that's why also my academic standards are going to be a little bit higher, and my athletic standards are going to be a little bit higher. Again, we want quality athletes, student athletes to be here that are here to go to school, play lacrosse, win games. That's what we're here to do. I'm very clear about my, when I talk to recruits, what Westcliff is not, all right? And Westcliff is not a campus with 30,000 students on it and 30 fraternities. And if that's what you're looking for, go to that school.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's not us. Go to you can head over to USC, UCLA. I know they got those kind of facilities for that type of environment, but for here, no, not really. That's not our vibe.
Well, you're here to get your degree.
Yes.
You're here to play lacrosse and win games, right? And those are the types of players we want. We want the kind of guys who love the idea of waking up in the morning, doing strength and conditioning so that you're strong for practice in the afternoon and have an awesome practice. And we do that every day and we win every game. Right? That's how we do it.
And I'm gonna be honest, Mike. I'm just gonna like I used to play football in high school, so I always remember waking up early in the morning, especially in SoCal. The weather here is
Awesome.
It's awesome, especially like if we're going conditioning and you're running sprints and you're gassed and you're like gasping for air, but then like after practice you're like, oh man, this weather is phenomenal. It's not, there's no humidity. I mean, you can recover unless you're practicing in the summer. You're not going to die from heat exhaustion or what have you. So and also, yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, we're in a great location.
On the beach.
We're right near the beach. You can have beach practices.
Beach. Where else in the country can you do that?
And I'm going to toot my West Coast status. I don't think East Coast beaches have the type of beauty to early morning workouts. I mean, I don't know, never been to the East Coast to see it, but I'm a little biased on our beautiful beaches here for those hard beach sessions for our sports. Cause I mean, our coaches and other sports that have been here for a while, they definitely pitch that for the recruitment, and they also enjoy their time at the beach. You can talk to any athlete here at Westcliff University on their off time. They love going to the beach to enjoy that environment.
Yeah. So just finishing up with the talk about this weekend. So we're expecting a good group of kids, some great players. We're going to see some high level lacrosse. It's going to be very, very impressive. And we expect to come out of this weekend with some LOIs signed. We have a good group of kids that I think Westcliff, we all think Westcliff is a good fit for them. And we hope to come out this weekend with a dozen or so LOIs signed. And then, you know what, if more, better. Who knows who comes to show up.
Hey, I was just about to say, Coach, like with your energy, how you're doing this recruitment visit, I wouldn't be surprised if more shown interest to being part of this emerging sport here at Westcliff. So, and this is a good segue into kind of our next kind of question. We've tried to launch a lacrosse season. It didn't quite go the way that most people envisioned it. I just want to kind of, what will you do differently, and what kind of are you looking forward to? Like, who do you want to play? What kind of schedule do you want to go up against? Like, who do you want to play in the NEI, and who do you want to play in our own backyard at the NCAA level?
Yeah. First of all, so I have. I hate to comment on something that I don't know anything about, right? So
I agree with you too, because I was not privy to the decisions or anything behind the scenes. So I don't know much too. I just know that we initially wanted a season. It didn't go the way that we envisioned it. So and last year was the past, so we're looking forward to next year. So what basically, what is the next year looking like for Westcliff lacrosse?
So one thing I emphasize is, and when I talk to my recruits, number one, college is hard. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Expect that. I don't care if you're going to an Ivy League school or anywhere else. First year is challenging.
Right.
So that's something that we need to address and even prevent some of the challenges that come up with a lot of freshmen face. And when you have a bunch of or when your core group is younger, you leave yourself to more risk to the program, right? So in other words, what I'm doing very strategically is recruiting a core group of upperclassmen transfers that can model and demonstrate the leadership, the behaviors, the things that you need to do as a student athlete for the incoming freshmen or the younger guys. I think that's very important to have leadership. And that's been part of my experience in doing any successful program that I've had is you can't have the blind leading the blind, if that makes any sense. And I've been in situations where, I've had freshmen through seniors, and a lot of them just weren't accustomed to or conditioned to a culture of discipline and performance and execution, right? And so one is part of this pre-screening before they come to campus. Two is part of getting some transfers and some upperclassmen who can help the younger guys, right? And then also it's being very clear about what our expectations are and having checkpoints continuously. I'm the type of coach that, hey, you're here, I'm your guy, I'm going to be talking to you every day, all day, and I'm going to be making sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. That's what we're signing up for. So that's the intent, and the hope is that strategy is effective, and we have a successful season. Now, also, I will say I'm fortunate that I'm starting after the initial aftermath of COVID. I just think that while I don't like to harbor on any excuses or anything, I mean, COVID was a real thing. And it really affected our youth. And it really, really changed things. So now that we're kind of coming out of it, I think the things are changing, right? It's less of a challenge. Well, I mean, it was more of a challenge before when everyone's going through all that, of course. So now with regards to our season, our strategy this year, we have 16 games that we can play in the season. During the season, we hope to schedule a handful in the top tier, a handful in the middle tier, and a handful in the lower tier, all right, to spread it out. But we definitely want to challenge ourselves. We don't want to schedule all easy games, right? We want to challenge ourselves. We want to have a effective schedule, and we want to have a recruitable schedule, right? So we want the guys who want to play the higher level games. And also in the fall and off season, we might have some scrimmages with some local MCLA teams. So who those teams are, I don't know quite yet. And I don't want to say quite yet, but we're definitely looking and definitely thinking about what schools would be a good match for us.
And I know you're headed in the right direction because all of our coaches at Westcliff do that kind of same model. They're the way all of our coaches put their schedule together, besides their conference schedule, there are no easy games on their schedule. Whenever I get that list of schedules and I'm trying to figure out what kind of edge we have, it's a hard game, and those are the most crucial. So for our basketball programs, they play a lot of D1, D2 teams. Our soccer programs do the same. Our women's volleyball team, our men's volleyball team, I mean, they're playing such high competitive games, and come for their conference season, they know what to expect, because either one, they get freaking hammered in playing. I know, like Long Beach for like men's volleyball, like if they get, I mean, it's a hard game playing Long Beach State, and they get that kind of get that experience, kind of that knowledge of like, hey, what do we need to fix on our own team? And come conference time, you don't have to figure out those issues. They're already solved from what you experienced in the preseason. And
Hopefully.
hopefully that's always the goal. I'll just say that, like, for the most part, like, I've always seen it. So yeah, hopefully that's the case. But for those sports, like, they definitely found their rhythm going into their conference season, because I mean, nobody really wants to go into a conference season, get smacked one game and just like, oh, now we have to work on our serving or whatever the case may be for like any other sport. So that model, we're always a huge fan of Westcliff, because we always like playing Division I and Division II teams. Like, for every sport that we sponsor plays a Division II and a Division I school.
Yeah.
I can't think of any sport that doesn't, to be honest.
And that's certainly the direction that we're thinking over here. There's certainly D3 schools that are closer to us that I believe we can certainly compete with and compete well with. And D2 is not that, a lot of D2 schools are not that different in terms of competitive level, right? So we can certainly go in that direction. I know the athletic director has mentioned wanting to graduate to a D2 level in the long-term plan, or even in the short-term plan. And it's totally doable. It's totally doable from the lacrosse standpoint. I want to get a couple years under our belt here in the NAIA. I very much think that we can set a goal for ourselves to contend for a national championship, and let's achieve those goals, and then pursue higher after that. But I certainly believe it's realistic. I've seen that progress before in other programs, especially the way that Westcliff was set up, and like we've discussed, being a California hub. I very much believe that we can attract the type of talent, as well as build the structure for that next level. As it was mentioned before, it's not that much of a difference from what we're doing today.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, all of our sports here at Westcliff are super competitive. We're also, I mean, you've mentioned this talking to coaches and stuff, like, we're extremely young. Not the university. The university's been around since 1993, but in terms of athletics, prior to, like, for our department started skyrocketing in 2019, 2020. Prior to 2019, we had like 3 sports. And I don't want to speak ill to those programs at the time, but they weren't any good. That's how I first
start somewhere.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, I mean, you guys start somewhere. This was prior to Sean, our dean of athletics, who got hired. That's how unfortunately, that's how I heard about Westcliff. Is I went to school local. We played Westcliff and smoked them 110 to, I don't even know what they scored. It wasn't favorable. And I was like, dang, that sucks. And then being recruited by Katie and Sean here, the whole, and for those listening in, we pride ourselves on the 5 C's, which are character, culture, community, commitment, and championships. When you talk to any school, especially at the NAIA level, which we're a part of, and even at some Division II and Division I schools, we drastically changed the culture of Westcliff athletics, definitely changed everyone's attitude, and we're doing everything by the book. We don't cut corners. We're not just adding athletes to our roster just to get a team together. So just like you mentioned before, you want to get that top tier athlete. Same thing for all of our sports. We just basically, for lack of a better, we don't grab bodies just to fill rosters. We grab athletes that can impact Westcliff athletics, both in the classroom, on the field, and in the community too. We're trying to teach these young adults how to be productive in society and how to basically be a good person once they leave Westcliff, also with a degree. That's always the goal. When you talk to coaches love championships, stuff like that, but they're a student athlete, and that student comes first, so their efforts in the classroom come first and foremost before anything else on the field. And all of our coaches promote that first.
I want to add something to what you were talking about is, one thing that I find very supportive of this athletic department, and what I want recruits to know is, we uniquely offer a Division I like package.
Yes.
Right. And I know Division II schools that don't get everything that our players get. Okay. I know Division I programs actually that don't get the equipment, gear, spirit, our whole package, plus the financial aid and the way that we support. There are Division I schools, competitive Division I lacrosse programs that have players that don't get what we get. So being able to offer that type of package, again, will help us get that type of talent and those type of players that have that growth vision to go to the next level. And I'm again, one of the reasons why, one of the reasons why I'm excited about this position is because of that type of support, and being able to say that to a player, hey, look, you're getting sports medicine, you're going to get your training, you get your gear, you get everything. A lot of NCAA programs don't even do that, right? So I just wanted to comment on that.
Michael, and I totally agree with everything you said about like Westcliff offering kind of a D1 kind of atmosphere. Our sports medicine department are top notch. Our sports science department, so Chelsea and Luttrell, being able to do some hands-on workout sessions with each individual sport. I know a lot of schools in the NAI don't really offer that. They may have like a strength and conditioning coach, but not a staff primarily focused for kind of workout sessions and growth in the off season. And also our sports information team. When I say that, first of all, even when I say the sports information team, most individuals kind of like, they're like, what's that? Because for the most part, sports information directors, like there's usually one or two, or especially at the D1 level, it's like kind of like their media department. Here, it's like we have so many talents on our team. We have Brandon, who's the man behind the scenes doing this podcast for us. He does a phenomenal job with our video highlights, some of our graphics as well, podcasts, and that just scratches the surface of what he does as well. We also have Jaffe, who is the media person for our basketball programs, who also is attached to our SID team that does a phenomenal job with highlight reels like that. Sanjay, same media person for the soccer programs. We also have Neil, our esports head coach, also is one of our coordinators that helps us out with sports information on the website and other kind of digital media and that kind of deal. So we have a lot of cool individuals, even in our sports information department, that some other schools don't necessarily offer. So when we say that even though we're at the NEI level, we have that D1 mentality, or that D1 kind of accessibility with the people within our own department. It's very true. And it's kind of like, we're kind of like a weird, like people are confused. Most people, like, they don't know exactly what's going on, which is pretty interesting. They're like, how are they, like, what's going on? Like, people are perplexed and confused because I've been around, Brandon's been around since 2019, where we were independent. We had no association, we had no conference, we didn't have a lot of sports, and now the growth 3 years later after COVID. I mean, I think most schools along with us were dealing with that COVID year. And the where we're at now and where we're headed, I can't believe I get to work here
Mhm.
and get to support amazing coaches, amazing athletes, like yourself and many others. Honestly, this is a dream. Um,
Yeah.
just being on my little personal segment part of this podcast, like it feels like a dream sometimes. And I know your athletes and those prospects, if you guys are listening in, when you are coming to Westcliff University, I mean, some people say that speech and it can kind of sound like scripted, that kind of deal. But I'm gonna be real. When you're with Westcliff Athletics, Westcliff University, you're gonna engage with administration, with other head coaches, with other programs that are once very passionate about their sport and the community of Westcliff Athletics. You talk to our our cheer coach Eric. He does a phenomenal job of bringing excitement to every home game that we host, and the student athletes and other athletes from other programs, when they go to those games, it's electric.
Yeah.
Um, Especially for since for the 21-22 athletic year, it was our first year in the NAI with a conference schedule, all that kind of. It was our first year, and it felt. I'm gonna be honest. It felt like we've been there before, even though
Yeah.
it's like and I know, and I talk to coaches all the time. They're tired of being labeled like the new kid on the block. Unfortunately, we are, but we're definitely getting away from
Mhm.
that perspective that people might have of us, 100%. So this, I mean, sorry, I'm just going on a weird, like
Well, everyone calls.
side.
I'll tell you, they'll start calling you new when, after we win all the games.
Yeah, I mean, they
You're
can't.
not new anymore. Once everyone's like, oh, you're the cute new team,
Yeah,
right? But then once you beat them, you're not so cute anymore, right?
absolutely
And
not.
and
And
and that's exactly the statement we're going to make. I mean, and this is exactly the position that, I think why one of the reasons I was brought onto this position is, um, I'm very comfortable with that, and that's exactly what I've been doing with my programs throughout my career, is surprising people, and telling them, hey, we're here to stay, right? So I love it. When you mentioned it's dream, hey, I was just yesterday, I was telling one of my friends was saying, hey, how was your day? Man, today was awesome. I had
yes,
a great day because I'm living my dream. I'm a full-time head coach at a college, right? I get to call kids all day and give them the opportunity and offer them their dreams, right? And so it's not just you, it's everyone part of this program, down to the students, and I think that's what builds a positive championship level culture, to finding those recruits that have that same type of mindset, because think about it, I'm talking to recruits, you get to work out, you get to do lacrosse all day and
yeah,
in class. You get to train, when normally you wouldn't have the time allocated, or you wouldn't have, hey, you get to train like an Olympian, right? I mean, that's what you get to do. And that's what our program offers. That's awesome. And those are the type of players we're recruiting.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you talk to every coach. I mean, I know when I first got hired. So I got hired. I didn't even graduate college yet. I got plucked by Sean, Katie, and Michael. Um, I mean, talk to some of our coaches. I can't remember specifics to mine, but a lot of them are from JUCO level. Some of them come from high school. Others are from other kind of 4-year college institutions. But we pride ourselves. I mean, there's no experience level or age level that matters. If you're passionate about athletics, sports, anything like that matter, and you're passionate about your student athletes first and foremost, there's a spot for you here at Westcliff. I know that for a fact. And yeah, I mean, I can't, it's a dream. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm just like, oh, I don't have a 9 to 5 that I'm going to dread waking
Right.
up the next day.
Mhm.
I get to work with an amazing staff with amazing coaches. It's kind of surreal. Like sometimes when people, like even within my own family, they're just like, "Hey, are you off this day?" And I'm like, "No, I got to work. That's what I that's what I
Yeah.
get to do. I got a game on Saturday that I got to be at." And they're just like, "Oh, hey, we're going on vacation." I'm like, "I'm not worried about that."
Right.
That's the so yeah, it's and so and we talked to some athletes currently here at Westcliff. We have a lot of international students from all parts of the world, and um, I'm just gonna piggyback on what I heard yesterday from Eric, from our cheer coach, from his athletes. Majority of his athletes are from Colombia, and they said, "Coach, I get to live out my dream of being part of this program, doing what I love." And if you can't be romantic about athletics after hearing an athlete from a different country getting the opportunity to come to the U.S. to get an education, but also participate in the sport, and they're just so emotional and grateful. It's an awesome feeling. That's why, like, I don't think of any other profession beats this. Um, so I'm yeah. So sorry, I just got a little emotional. I
No
apologize about that.
worries. No worries.
Um,
No, but that's the same effect that we're having on the players too and the students.
Now I know we talked a lot. It was such a great conversation. I want to get into a little bit more of about lacrosse as a sport. So I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I'm very kind of new to lacrosse. So I want to see if you can help explain to me, along with the audience, what makes lacrosse so unique compared to every other sport.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start off by saying lacrosse is arguably the fastest growing sport in the country and has been for decades, since I was a child. Now, some statistics, I mean, you can argue that, but the fact is it's growing. It's one of the fastest growing sports. One of the reasons I think, and I survey and I poll all the time, and I'm like, well, what is it? One of the reasons I believe it's popular is it being a combination of all the great sports, right? So, it's full contact. You wear a helmet like football, but it's not head-to-head contact. It's not, the tackling type of contact that the way football is. In terms of team concepts and ball movement, it's the exact same as basketball and very similar to soccer. And then when people start watching it, they're like, well, wait a minute, that's a zone defense just like basketball. They're playing a zone with one man to man. It's very similar, the strategies. And then also offensively, ball movement, motion, the pick and roll, we call it the two-man game, very similar to basketball or other team field sports like soccer, right? So I believe because there's some familiarity in terms of the base of the sport, I believe that there's the attraction there. If I've played baseball, if you can throw and catch a baseball, you can throw and catch a lacrosse ball with a stick, right? So that translates over. The footwork translates over. Like I said, the team concepts translates over. And the full contact part of it for boys, I think it's very enticing, especially when you look at an 8-year-old, right? And they see a stick, I mean, they want to do something with it, right? So, so perhaps that's why I also believe there's a lot more initiative, especially in states like California, to grow the sport. California adopted it as a CIF sport years ago. And because of that, all the public schools are starting programs, and therefore you get two things. Number one, a whole lot more players playing the sport, so the quality gets better. But also, what I was mentioning before is the diversity of the sport. It was traditionally a very East Coast prep school sport, and it has grown tremendously. Now, one of the things that also helps with that growth is the college opportunities. And schools like Westcliff and others, especially other NAIA schools, being able to provide that, an education and play, just puts another carrot at the end of the stick, for younger players. And so that growth is exciting. And the level is really exciting. Now, another factor I want to throw on top of that is the Professional Lacrosse League, or the Premier Lacrosse League. We have professional lacrosse now that is more visible and mainstream. The previous Professional Lacrosse League was very much a secondary sport. It wasn't on prime time. It wasn't on main time slots. And starting last year, or a couple of years ago, the PLL came in and they took a very aggressive marketing approach with NBC. And they did a very good job glamorizing the sport and making it more visible and more mainstream looking, if you will. And so now ESPN took over that contract and is giving a whole lot more visibility to the sport. So I believe all those things combined just makes it more attractive and just more awareness. Like you said, a lot of kids may never have heard of it, but I'm telling you, I'm about 100% on converting a kid from giving them a stick and showing them what lacrosse is to having them become a lacrosse player. Only once they see it, once they start throwing it, once they start throwing around, they're in. And so put all those factors together, we got growth of the sport.
And I'm just gonna reiterate your point. I know I don't know the history of like lacrosse at least, but I knew when I was in high school, from 2011 to 2015, it's like we had lacrosse programs. So just like you said, especially in California, it was growing amongst the public schools. Also, quick shout out to my alma mater, Lisa Miguel. They won the CIF championship for men's lacrosse this past season. Go Wolverines! Just a little bit. Sorry, Warriors. But yeah, I mean, it especially is big. I know for colleges, especially at the D1 level and the NAI level, lacrosse is, I guess, I want to say, is primarily focused to kind of like the Midwest and East Coast region. But it's very popular from what I can tell at the high school level here in California. It's weird. It's almost like it's a weird kind of atmosphere where like not a lot of colleges in California offer lacrosse. And I'm just like, why? There's a lot of talent around here.
The number of high schools offering it is disproportionate to the number of colleges in California.
Right.
So what you're seeing is kind of accelerated growth in the high schools because of CIF support of it, and the funding of it, number one. Okay, so every CIF school, they want to pick up lacrosse, they'll get the budget, right? And so that's exciting. And so that growth, so now you look at a school like Westcliff, now we got to fulfill that demand of that next level. So now all those kids are becoming seniors, right? Or they're now they're ready for college. Like I said, there's a disproportionate number of colleges offering lacrosse as a school sanctioned sport, not just as a club sport in California. So I find that very interesting, very attractive. I will also add, one thing I always say whenever I talk to kids about the sport, I always ask kids, what do you think the oldest original American sport is?
And I think most people might say baseball or football, but I'm gonna guess by this line of question, I am incorrect. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the only original American sport is lacrosse because it was a Native American sport. Every other American sport was developed by Americans that came to America, right? So we talk about the origins of the sport and the fact that is the true American sport. Having those roots, I believe, has some value to a lot of youth, and that attractiveness compels them as well. So there, like I said, there are a number of factors, but what I end with is Westcliff is in a great position because what I said was there's definitely a disproportionate number of high school teams that are sanctioned by schools, and not enough colleges in California for that to fit that growth.
Now, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, that's the one thing that kind of sticks out in my mind is the kind of how many high school athletes we have, but very few. So I guess that's why a lot of them go out east
Yes.
to those other big institutions where we're like you said, West Coast is in a good position to grab those few of just like, hey, we're right in your back door. You don't have to travel far away and be away from family.
Mm-hmm.
So we are nearing our end, our time together, Michael. I just want to thank you for being here, for helping us learn a little bit more about you, you being our head coach, along with what kind of goals and direction that Westcliff Lacrosse is going in. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you for being first and foremost being one of the pioneers, because I mean, we talked to all our coaches. It's very hard to start a program that doesn't have history, hasn't had a season yet. So it's very difficult, and I just want to thank you for putting in the time and energy. And I'm excited for for your visit that I'm going to be at tomorrow. I haven't been to a lacrosse recruitment, so I'm excited for that. I want to see what that's all about. Friday. Friday, I can't wait. And also, I haven't been to a lacrosse practice in person, so I don't know what the atmosphere is like and stuff like that. So I'm excited for all of that.
You're going to see some 90-mile-an-hour shots.
I am going to try
shooting the 90s.
I'm going to try my best to kind of get away from that because I do not want to
stay on the sidelines.
I'm going to stay on the sideline.
For all you newbies to lacrosse, don't stand behind the goal. Don't stand on the end line of the field.
I know
you're not allowed there. And I always tell parents, like, you always see parents go to tournaments and they put their chair right behind the goal. I'm like, what are you doing?
There's no net. There's no net. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to get hit with something harder than a baseball going 90 plus. So yeah, that doesn't sound like a fun trip to the ER. So I want to thank you for your time, Michael. I know Westcliff Lacrosse, we're in a great direction. And we will hope to see you again and learn more about you. For those tuning in, listening into this podcast, don't be afraid to follow us first and foremost, and also follow Lacrosse on all of our social medias. For Instagram at WestcliffU_Lacrosse. Also follow us on our social media for our athletics department for any kind of updates for all of our future sports that are coming up in the fall, and along with more information about lacrosse. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast. As always, a shout out to our Dean of Athletics, Sean Harris, our baseball coach, David Shermet, who made this podcast possible, along with our man behind the scenes, Brandon Peterson, for his production. A huge thank you to our Westcliff family for making the podcast what it is each and every week. We'll be back next week, but until then, please drop by the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, for any other previous episodes that may pique your interest, along with leaving us a review. It really helps us get the word out about Warrior Athletics. We thank you for your support, and keep an eye out for the next episode.